I know philosophy is not everyone's cup of tea, but it is important, in a sense, historically, to understand the difference between classical and modern philosophy and how that affects the church history or Christianity as it stands today, even. I saw two videos of Jordan Cooper talking about Descartes, and that's one of the philosophers I'm reading at the moment for a philosophy class I'm taking. So Descartes, the first in the era of modern philosophy because his system challenged a lot of assumptions that made classical philosophy work. Number one is that reality is accessible to reason and observation. Descartes obviously begins to doubt everything, which was a bit of the zeitgeist of his time, and he comes to the conclusion, well, if I can know anything, it's that I exist, and then he reasons that God exists, and because God exists, that, well, he can trust his senses and he can trust everything. The problem is, a lot of people didn't like his proof for God because it was basically the ontological argument. So people were kind of left in the state of doubt where they didn't see reality as accessible to reason and observation the way the classical philosophers did. They weren't willing to understand the second assumption, metaphysical realism, that the world and things that are in it exist independently of our perception. If I leave the room, all these things remain, but the new way of looking at things, we begin to even doubt that. Third was that trust and sensory experience. Now, lots of people reacted different ways than what Descartes did, and sometimes people just have to say, well, at the end of the day, you have to trust your sensory experience. But a lot of philosophers didn't accept that and still won't accept it today. The fourth is the idea of objective truth and universal principles. Like, is there such a thing? Descartes opened the door for people doubting these things even existing. And even those who accept these have to reason a completely different way because this idea of skepticism has become part and parcel. The fifth assumption, and I kind of actually see this as a positive, the authority of tradition and like scholasticism, like Catholic theologians, that was called into question because how could tradition be a source of truth? But now the skepticism wasn't like rooted in the Reformation. It was actually a Catholic theologian who may have been a skeptic more than one who was actually faithful to the Catholic Church. There's debate about that, but it was actually some of his writings that caused Descartes to want to systematize his views. The man's name is Chiron. Because these truths aren't taken for granted anymore, a lot of the classical arguments for God's existence also aren't used, and we have to reformulate them in a rational way or come up with different arguments. Another thing is Descartes saw the mind and body as being separate, the way that, Christians would, soul and body. And this is called dualism, the idea that body and spirit, are of different substance. The question for Descartes is, well, how do they interact with one another? But those who reject dualism would either accept materialism or idealism, that all that is real is just material things, so there is no mind or spirit apart from the physical. Others will say that everything that exists is an idea or part of the mind, like even the body is part of the mind, and all things are part of some sort of mind or spirit or idea, while others try to struggle with those concepts without trying to take a position. But the bottom line is, if we don't have these ideas in place, if we don't assume them, even Bertrand Russell talks about instinctive beliefs, like, I believe that this book is real, this desk is real, and I might not be able to prove it rationally from not assuming anything, but it becomes a practical and instinctive belief. And I've always thought that's the best way to get at Descartes' problem that he raises, albeit unintentionally. I assume I exist. I assume I can reason to truth from the world that I live in and what I experience. And if I make those assumptions, then I'm going to come to a conclusion. So I think, therefore I am is not really an argument. It's really the basis for Descartes, but it's not just, this wishy-washy philosophical thing. It's saying, I know I exist, and I can find out that I exist by reason, but I should also use reason to deal with the things that I sense and the things that I see and find a way to get to truth. Like whatever truth is in front of me, whatever truth is in this universe to be had, I can seek after that truth. Where Descartes' starting point puts more hurdles in front of us than we'd care to deal with or wrestle with, the assumptions, the instinctive beliefs of classic philosophy can, in my opinion, help us to come to an objective truth.